Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show this morning, 38 minutes after 6 o'clock. Yesterday, the big news hitting all the papers, hitting all the news stories is the 33% increase in flour prices with immediate effect from today. These are wholesale prices. I want to chat this morning with the chairman of the National Flour Mills Limited, Mr. Nigel Romano, alongside the CEO of the National Flour Mills, Mr. Ian Mitchell. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? And good morning to your viewers as well.
Thank you so much. So far, I'm okay, but I'm wondering. People are wondering. You know, everybody's been saying this. You all said it's because of the war in Ukraine. Can you break down for me how the war currently going on in Ukraine affects the prices of the wheat that you have to purchase to be able to give us flour?
Well, before I answer that, let me just say that the war in Ukraine is the last straw, if you will.
Okay.
Prices have been going up since last year, and as a result of those increases in prices, as a result of the pandemic and the disruption in the supply chains, we saw the price of wheat going up. Come 2022, when we thought things would stabilize as we came out of the pandemic, we had the Russians invading Ukraine. And Russia and Ukraine together produce about 29% of the world's supply of wheat. That caused the price to spike. And between January and our last purchase, NFM's last purchase, the price went up by 49%. Let me put that into context. That was our increase. But however, if you look at the Chicago Board of Trade, where the wheat futures are traded, you will see that prices actually went up as high as 64% in that period, and they're still very volatile. And that's for the wheat that we use, and other strains of wheat have gone up by 75%. In addition to the war in Ukraine, the fallout from the war in Ukraine led other countries, India and other countries, to restrict their export of grain because they were concerned about making sure they had food to feed their populations. Our focus has been on securing supplies of grain to ensure that we don't ever run out of flour in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have secured supplies to produce flour until the end of 2022. And the price that we have secured it at is about 49% higher than we experienced in January. I hope that clarifies.
It does bring a certain amount of clarity. Mr. Mitchell, I want to find out, when was the last time we had an increase in the price of flour, and how much percent was it by?
Yeah, so we did an increase. We announced it on the 29th of December last year, and it was in effect from January 2nd this year. And that was the first price increase from NFM on flour or flour-related products since the year 2008.
Okay. And how much you said it went up by when you did that increase in January? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, that was between 17 and 19%.
So 17 and 90%, and now we see a further 33%. But I just know you mentioned that Russia and Ukraine produce 29 to 30% of the wheat in the world, right? And you're saying the other 70% of the wheat production is being, for lack of a better word, like held hostage by countries who say they want to feed their own population. So we still have to look towards that 29 to 30%?
All right, just to clarify, the 29% is wheat that is exported, not necessarily what is produced.
Right.
So there are many nations that produce wheat. Some are net exporters and others produce enough for their domestic market. Russia actually is the biggest exporter of wheat. Ukraine ranks about 5th. And so what happens is when wheat is not available from those two countries, it means the remaining wheat that would be exported to other nations such as Trinidad and Tobago, where we are unable to produce wheat, that wheat becomes, for want of a better word, under competition from other nations who want to import.
Right.
And so that forces, the whole supply-demand sort of situation. It forces the price up. And that's why we're seeing record prices.
But let's be clear. We don't import from Russia or Ukraine. We import from the United States.
Okay.
But the price of wheat has gone up everywhere. The Chicago Board of Trade is where wheat is traded. And that's where you have to buy your wheat. And that determines the price right across the globe.
So is there anything that the national flour mills can do to mitigate the escalating prices of wheat? Because if we're seeing that it's going up, we say the pandemic had an effect on it, we're saying now that the war in Ukraine has an effect on it, and we're saying that the Chicago board is who is really in control of whether the prices go up or down. But is there anything that the NFM can do to mitigate those costs?
The Chicago board is not in charge. The Chicago board is a marketplace.
Well, yes,
demand and supply determine the price. Okay, right. So let's be clear on that. So if we look at the price of spring wheat in January 2021, the beginning of 2021, the price then was about $5.90 US dollars per bushel. The price today, $8.55, $14.06 is the highest it reached in May. That's 138% increase. If you combine the 19% and the 28%, you're looking at a 52% increase. So while the spring wheat futures are going up by as much as over 100%, our price increase has been limited to 52% combined. Mm-hmm. And that is possible because we are working to improve the efficiency of what we can control. The unfortunate thing is that we only control 20% of the cost of production, because the cost of wheat makes up 80% of our cost of production. So our hands are tied literally.
Is there any possibility for us to look at using anything else besides wheat for our flour production? I mean, I know we've had conversations about.
We have been looking at cassava.
Right.
Ian, you want to add what else you have been looking at?
Yes, sweet potato and cassava, the two other sources of flour that we've been looking at. It's interesting because I was having the conversation with my wife last night, and I was saying as we reached out for quotes and we worked with farmers in Trinidad, and we've been talking to people in as far as Costa Rica and Ghana, as we try to source and just really do a lot of development work with cassava flour. Cassava flour is more than twice as expensive when processed as wheat flour. So while it's an option and it's something that we want to look at because it gives us the security of growing that component of what we eat at home, the cost to grow cassava, extract the starch from it and process it into flour is just significantly expensive at this time. I don't know how.
And we need to make sure that if we are going to rely on cassava as a source, that it is reliable, the quality is assured, and we can get the quantities necessary to serve the market.
One other important factor is other flours do not perform the same way or will not perform the same way as wheat flour.
And that would change what ends up in the consumer aspect of things. Because, we use flour for lots of things here in Trinidad. Lots of things that we love to eat, the bacon shacks, the doubles, the roti. Everything is flour, right? We love flour. But, you guys have announced that this increase to happen with immediate effect. You announced it yesterday. It's supposed to go in effect from today. When do you anticipate it should trickle down to the consumer? Because this is wholesale flour you're talking about going up by 33%. You're recommending a 28% increase for supermarket owners, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so We supply goods on a weekly cycle to most of our customers, and I expect that within a day or two, you're going to see the price adjustments in the retail trade. So certainly, I think by the end of this week, most supermarkets would have already made the adjustment to the new suggested retail price.
You know, I wonder about that, because wouldn't it be that, you know, they would have been still trading in stock that was purchased before this price increase?
It's possible, but as I said, because of the nature of our products, we supply on a weekly basis. So basically what we sold you last week should not last beyond this week. Okay. So, which is why I say by the end of this week, you should see most of the retailers transition to the new price.
All right. Now, everybody's been asking this question, which is, yes, we see the increase in prices. So, of course, we see the reflection of the increase in prices being trickled down. If prices were to drop, will we also see that reflection trickling down?
Well, we are hoping that the situation in Ukraine resolves itself. One, that should lead to a more reliable supply of wheat. One. Two, the price of fuel should drop, reducing the cost of transportation. And let me tell you, we are making an unequivocal promise. If the price drops, our price drops.
But the price of wheat and fuel, or just one or the other?
Both. I mean, either one. Once our cost of production drops, we will pass on the savings.
And will you also ensure that the savings are passed on to the consumers, or you have no control over that?
Well, no, we have no control over that. I mean, we will publicize the fact that we are reducing, the same way we publicize that we are increasing prices. Mm-hmm. We will let everybody know that we are reducing prices, so that the consumer can then say, well, look, and if I'm reduce their price, why aren't you reducing yours?
All right. Well, we can hope for that level of honesty from our wholesalers as well as the supermarkets, and of course the people who are making the products that use flour as well. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for joining us this morning and for sharing a bit of information with us regarding this price increase. Any final words before we go, Mr. CEO?
No, I think it's just important to let the nation know that we understand, and we've held off on this for quite some time because we see ourselves as very important in the whole equation of how the nation is fed. We will do what we can. We will continue to do what we can. And as the chairman has promised, once the costs start going back down, we will make the necessary adjustments.
All right. And any final words from you, Mr. Chairman?
These are not easy times. These are very difficult times, and it's not just the price of wheat and, of course, a staple like flour, but it's also transport costs. I mean, I think we are benefiting as a nation as a result of that, but it is impacting every aspect of commerce, and of course, you're reading about inflation all over the world and the unprecedented levels that as it's going. And of course, we have the prospect of a deflation or stagflation coming. So let's buckle our belts and do as much as we can, as best as we can, to help each other through these difficult times.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman of the National Flour Mills, Mr. Nigel Romano, and of course, Ian Mitchell, the CEO of National Flour Mills. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. All the best going forward.
My pleasure.
That's for having us.
Take care. Bye-bye.